What's happening, guys? This is House Cat MMA, and right now I'm going to be going over why the UFC heavyweight division kind of sucks present day. But before I get into all that, if you would just take a second to like and subscribe, maybe do a little bit of commenting and sharing, that'd be pretty tight. So I was watching Tai Tuivasa versus Taliesin Teixeira this past Saturday, and it just made me think. These are two ranked heavyweights fighting like it's amateur king of the cage night back in the day. And they're both ranked heavyweights. Like there's no urgency going on, there's no cardio going on, there's only moderate skill going on. Tai Tuivasa looked like he'd never wrestled a day in his life, which he probably hasn't. And Taliesin Teixeira, though he won, he didn't look that good either. And I was just thinking, why does the UFC heavyweight division kind of suck present day? Because, as recently as 10, 15 years ago, you had, people looked forward to heavyweight fights. You tell a casual, oh, it's some big UFC fights tonight, and they'll be like, any heavyweights on there? I remember these things. And because you had your Brock Lesnar's, your Frank Mir's, your Chet Congos, your Mirko Krokop's, your Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira's, your Mark Hunt's, your Roy Nelson's, your Travis Brown's, your Alistair Overeem's, your Fabricio Verdum's, your Ken Velasquez's, your Trinidad dos Santos guys. You had these guys. You had fucking hell Heath Herring there for a second. You had guys who, for the most part, were legitimately big humans who could not make 205 even if they tried their hardest. There's a couple guys in there that could have made 205. Mark Hunt could have, Roy Nelson could have, Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira could have, Mirko Krokop could have. But other than that, these were all just, Ken Velasquez probably could have, but at large, they were just legitimately large human beings who were good fighters. But present day, the UFC heavyweight division is full of guys who some of them could make 185 if they wanted to. I don't know if Marcin Tybura could make 185, but I know he can make 205. Blago Ivanov, who no longer fights in the UFC, but he was in the UFC for a minute. He could have made 205. The division's full of guys. It's full of guys who, you got your Marcus Rogerio de Limas, who doesn't fight in the UFC anymore, but he did for a hot minute. He started off a 185er and ate his way up to heavyweight. He did put on a good bit of muscle, I will say that, but he also got fat to make heavyweight. Jake Collier, Jake Collier didn't even put on muscle to get up around heavyweight. He just got fat. And you got your guys who are also legitimately large human beings present day. Dontel Mays, who got cut recently, but it's just full of guys who can make at least 205 if they wanted to. And I kind of started noticing the shift around 2018, 2019, but 2016 it was in its embryonic stages. And it all kind of started with Marcin Tybura. Marcin Tybura made his debut in 2016. But 2016, 2017, 2018, heavyweight was still legit. But then in 2018, Blago Ivanov made his debut. And then it got really crazy when Chris Barnett made his debut in the UFC. And so now that begs the question, why is this happening? Why does the heavyweight division in the UFC kind of suck? And I came to the conclusion that the American heavyweight kind of sucks because the American heavyweight 7 or 8 times out of 10 is a failed football player. Why are they a failed football player? It's because they didn't have that shit to bring them to the top, and they bring that to the UFC. They are a failed football player because they lack the athleticism necessary to be a successful football player, and they bring that to the UFC. So that answers the question for the American heavyweight. But the Eastern European heavyweight, is Bulgaria In Eastern Europe, I'm not sure. So scratch Eastern Europe, but the European heavyweight kind of sucks. I'm actually not sure why, because most of them are like either freestyle or Greco-Roman wrestlers, and Blago Ivanov was a sambo guy who actually beat Fedor at the World Sambo Championships in 2008. And he wasn't bad, but he wasn't really all that good either. But then you got your Alexander Romanov, who started in the UFC in some decent shape. Like he started in the UFC at like 239 pounds, a little pudgy, but kind of fit too. And then he just started putting on crazy weight for whatever reason. And he was a hell of a Greco-Roman. Was he Greco-Roman? He's either Greco-Roman or freestyle. I want to say Greco. It's a hella strong, but all he really brought to the table was strength. And then, there's not really many Brazilian heavyweights present day that they do exist. But I can't really think of one right now. Well, I mean, Marcos Rogerio de Lima, though he's not in the UFC anymore. Like, I don't know. It's just, I guess, in the fight game, you're going to have divisions that they were once good, but now not so much. But, back in the day, I mean, the UFC heavyweight division was, almost but not quite on par with like present day 170 or 155 with the amount of competition. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Brendan Schaub, if you put a 30-year-old Brendan Schaub in the UFC present day, he's ranked number 7 or 8. And I actually think I could be wrong, but I think the highest he was ever ranked was 7th. I think he might have been ranked 7th or 10th. I mean, he's either ranked 7th or 10th when he fought Travis Brown in his last fight. So not much would change if Brendan Schaub was fighting at the heavyweight division present day. But I like present day Brendan Schaub's chances against an unranked heavyweight. I'm trying to think of an unranked heavyweight. Fuck. Why do I keep on thinking of Dontel Mays? Present day, I like present day Brendan Schaub's chances against a Dontel Mays. I do. Or Mick Parkin. I like 42-year-old Brendan Schaub's chances against Mick Parkin. No. The better one would be Chris Barnett. Because, Chris Barnett's a very athletic, fat man. And he has won fights in the UFC. John Vellante should be ashamed of himself losing to Chris Barnett. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have on that. Like I was saying earlier, do your commenting, your sharing, your liking, your subscribing. Subscriber count's going up a little bit. It's going up. I want to hit 100 by mid-March. Hell yeah, fuck yeah.